Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John and it's time for another episode of 7 on Sunday. 7 on Sunday is my weekly countdown series. It started all the way back in 2013, so now that the show is turning 7, the first 7 episodes of SOS for 2020 are all going to be sequels. Sequelitis today is presenting itself in the form of 7 great singles from otherwise bad albums part 2. This launched back in 2018, I believe, for the first part of this, and you guys seem to really love it. I enjoy the concept too, because it's fun to play around with. You don't always see that. I mean, generally, there's at least like a handful of songs that I like from a lot of records, especially if there's a song that I love. But sometimes, unfortunately, bands or an artist will put their best foot forward, and they really mean best foot forward. Not all of the albums that I'm covering today are awful in my eyes. They're just forgettable, underwhelming. They could be awful or bad. I'll be sure to let you know, but please don't just assume because you see it on the list if you're skimming through that I absolutely hate the album. Make sure you check out part 1 of this video. There is a card on screen now, or else better yet, a link at the end of the video, or else in the video description. Please do me a favor, take 1 second out of your time, hit that like button, subscribe if you happen to be new, and let's get into this list of great singles from bad albums. I was really looking forward to this Wet album, but at number 7 from the album Still Run that launched in 2017, we have a song called There's a Reason that went on to kind of be a defining song in my relationship. There's a reason, you're by my side. It's a great, loving feel, a warm embrace like sunshine coming in to hug you. And the rest of the album was so damn boring and miserable, forgettable. I don't want to say it's awful because I see what they were going for, bringing in some choral effects and everything, but it flat out didn't work. This is a band that I had previously enjoyed. I mean, they had some good songs like Don't Wanna Be Your Girl on their debut record. And then I just kind of got lost inside this album. It was unmistakably, yes, wet, but at the same time, unmistakably boring. Number 6, UPPERDRUGS by the rock band Highly Suspect, or should I even say rock band after MCID? That unfortunate third album followed up The Boy Who Died Wolf and Mr. Asylum, both really great albums in their own regard, with a bunch of pandering bullshit for the most part that I couldn't at all support or get behind. UPPERDRUGS was genuinely one of the only songs on the record alongside the likes of Canals and 16 and Snow White. I think the only 4 on the album that I at least liked somewhat, but UPPERDRUGS was one of the co-lead singles. This sees Johnny Stevens talking about going out to get his prescription drugs, his uppers, his downers, and he needs that fix and he worries about his life. It hangs in the balance, and you can hear that with those forlorn guitars that are almost like a warning signal. And then you listen to the rest of the album and you're like, where is anything resembling any kind of this intensity or emotion? I'm not hearing it. It all feels vapid and useless, and that's unfortunately what MCID is. It's a stain, it's a vanity project, and again, can't support it at all. I don't wanna get caught up in the rhythm of it, but I can't help myself. Number 5, Say Something by Justin Timberlake featuring country artist Chris Stapleton. This is off of the Man of the Woods album where JT was really trying to show everyone that he was fully embracing his Tennessee roots, and he kind of got panned for it. He got memed a lot, and honestly, a lot of the roasts were very deserved. I think the record overall just kept falling flat on its face. There were a few moments out there like Montana, and of course, Say Something that really did work, but for the most part, it's like, JT, why are you out here pretending like you're in a flannel shirt and this is what you do on the daily? Yeah, really? You're out here chopping wood? I don't think so. That's why Say Something is such an anomaly. It weirds me out that this song is so damn great in the middle of this album. I mean, it's surrounded by a lot of filth. I mean, literally, and this song is just fantastic. It's an electrifying vocal performance from both artists. I love the acoustic guitars here, and it really builds up a lot of momentum behind it, and you can see that they're genuinely trying to pull and elicit a response. Their voices sound so strong and oddly soothing. It goes down like a glass of Tennessee whiskey, and I know that's what they were going for, but unlike the rest of the record, this one stuck. Hot take alert, get your hot takes, get them while they're hot. The Dark Side comes in at number 4. This is off of Simulation Theory, released in late 2018 by the UK rock and, I guess, pop rock band, electro-pop experimental rock band MUSE. And MUSE are one of my favorite bands of all time. I think that's gone without saying, considering the coverage that I've given to them on my channel. But I did get a lot of backlash, and I understand why when I covered Simulation Theory. The record, in my eyes, still to this day, is not very good. It just feels rubbish. In a lot of regards, it seems like a lot of ideas being forced and melded together, and I don't think it was super well executed. I appreciate the ambition, but again, the landing wasn't stuck. However, I present to you The Dark Side, an electrifying song that has this stomping rhythm to it. The guitars feel like vintage MUSE, but there are some new elements at play. I appreciate the updated mix. I appreciate the falsetto vocals from Matt Bellamy. It's a booming, towering tune that alongside the likes of, say, Algorithm and Barricades, is that the name of the track? Blockades, that's the name of the track, sorry. What I'm trying to say is that The Dark Side is one of the few moments on the LP that actually lights off that switch in my brain that needs to be turned on when I'm listening to MUSE. And I do partially feel that when I listen to some of the other cuts, and again, I can appreciate the nods that they were trying to give, even some of the Rage Against the Machine influence on a couple of tracks, but overall, not really for me. But this song, The Dark Side, absolutely. Dialing it back to the early 1980s, we have one of the most critically dismissed albums by the band Queen. It's called Hot Space, and the single from this record that I think most of you probably know is Under Pressure, featuring David Bowie. It's legendary, and of course, I love this song. What else can I say? It went on to become a sample and a Vanilla Ice song. Do you want to see me talk about that? No, instead, let's actually talk about Queen and what went wrong on this album. It felt like on Hot Space, they were really just trying to be other people than themselves. They were following some trends, they were hopping on an electronic soundboard, and it didn't really make sense for them. I'm all for an artist evolving, but it just seems like Freddie Mercury was guiding the rest of the band into this unknown that really just saw them running out into a field, and wait, it's a trap and the bottom falls out. Once you've suffered through the majority of this album that's pretty unlikable and will definitely turn some heads for those of you who have not listened to this record, and maybe you've listened to other Queen records like Night at the Opera, it's a little bit head spinning. I can get that. But if you make it to the end of the record, you get Under Pressure, and of course, a timeless tune that has some great intertwining of vocals, such energy here. And obviously, live performances are great to look back at too, but even the studio recording, it just really captured something special, and it makes me wonder, how do you play back that song and you're like, huh, well, in comparison to all these other songs around it, this one's so much better, maybe we should redo the rest of the album? Nah, I'm not coming for Queen's throat or anything like that. I hope most of you can understand that. I mean, most of our favorite bands probably have that one stinker out there, and I just happen to think that Hot Space is the main one for Queen. Sometimes things in music just don't make sense to me, and one of those elements would be Ariana Grande. Critical reception to her was always kinda mild and mediocre leading up to her Sweetener album, and then all of a sudden, she's critically acclaimed. But before that, some of her records, well, they got decent scores. It was never like, oh my god, you have to hear this now. And I was like, really? Dangerous Woman, such a good album, and her debut is fantastic. Yours Truly, so good. Honeymoon Avenue, so many of these other songs. And then we get to Sweetener, and then I start to feel really indifferent. The experimenting, the Pharrell production was just outright glaringly annoying, and then critics are suddenly like, yes, this is exactly what we want, and it just leads me to believe that a lot of critics, at least in the mainstream sense, they just want something weird to talk about. I do get that in some senses. I want something avant-garde occasionally to really throw me off. My expectations are totally broken and I don't see it coming. But for Ariana Grande's sake, I just don't feel that this album played out to her strengths. Now granted, the singles from this album were fantastic, and one of those, the best song that maybe she's ever created, is No Tears Left to Cry, and it is soaked in this R&B 90s vibe with a little bit of modern production. It is so good. There's guitars in the background of the mix that are very crisp, but also quiet, but they're not totally drowned out, and the production here is just immaculate. Better than anything else, Ariana's voice has a spotlight raining down on it, and you just totally get lost in the vibe of this song. The verses are laid back, the chorus is compelling as hell, and I think it's funny that the singles from this album, Sweetener, I thought were really great, but then her next record, Thank You Next, it had the opposite problem, where the singles were pretty trash, and then the rest of the album, the deep cuts, surprised the hell out of me. Number 1, numero uno, Don't Blink, Reliant K. This was the lead single from their album that dropped in 2013, Collapsible Lung. As an album overall, of course I was excited leading up to it, but once I finally pressed play, I felt so gutted because this record doesn't feel like them at all. It feels like a major identity crisis. They were trying to kind of relate some mainstream ideas, Can I Take You Home, all of these other things that just didn't feel like, I don't know, the innocence of Reliant K. And I understand that they've been through some deep shit, but they did such a better job at correlating those feelings, lining them up, and putting them out on albums like Forget and Not Slow Down, and especially Air for Free. Collapsible Lung is this weird middle ground where it seems like they're just tinkering around in the studio, putting out anything that maybe comes to them in the moment. There's outside co-writers, there's a lot of extra production, and it feels way too glossed over in many ways, but also not touched enough. It's like sparse in some places and then overloaded in others. Don't Blink came down the pipeline for the first single, and I just found this to be a nice moment of clarity, a moment of life that makes you, in turn, feel alive. It's a very beautiful song, and it does have a very catchy chorus that feels uplifting, soaring even, but the rest of the record didn't even come close to touching those highs. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another sequel episode of 7 on Sunday. If you want to see part 1 of great singles from bad albums, then tap this card here. Remember, it's all just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and if you want to check out last week's episode of SOS, then tap here. All of my socials, including my Patreon, can be found in the description, and I will see you soon for more on ARTV.